This morning, we are going to be talking about travel document security, which is a cornerstone of the United States effort to secure our homeland. It's integral to pushing our borders out. The ability of terrorists and others who would seek to do us harm hinges in large part on the ability to travel. And if you make it hard for terrorists to cross our borders without being detected, future acts of terrorism hopefully can be prevented. And I want to begin by commending the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of State for the great progress made as we have strengthened the so-called outer ring of border security. Today, we conduct more vigorous vetting earlier in the process. We station DHS personnel in high-risk countries to prevent persons of concern from boarding a plane or getting a visa, and we are using biometrics to detect visa fraud. And in the past 3 years, this subcommittee has actually held 6 various hearings on visa and document security, because we certainly understand the importance of the 9/11 Commission's recommendations, and one of their conclusions, actually, as they said in that report, that for terrorists, travel documents are as important as weapons. Vulnerabilities in our document security can be exploited by those who would do us harm, so we must have robust measures in place to deter and to ultimately detect those traveling on false documents. To that end, we were certainly dismayed to learn from press reports that 2 of the passengers on the Malaysian Flight 370 boarded the aircraft using stolen passports. And while, of course, it has been reported, we don't have any reason to believe that these individuals were involved in an act of terrorism, it certainly highlights a vulnerability in the aviation systems abroad. Our hearts, of course, thoughts and prayers go out to the families who are still waiting to learn what has happened to their loved ones, and we certainly hope and pray that that plane will soon be found. In the United States, through the work of the Department of Homeland Security, we've made the necessary changes to keep the flying public secure, and the ability of passengers to board a flight bound for the United States with a known lost or stolen passport is very, very low. In the years after 2001, the international community, through Interpol, created a lost and stolen travel document database that gives countries a mechanism to both send the information to a central repository and to check against that database to make sure no one could enter a country or board a plane with a known lost or stolen passport. Unfortunately, only 3 countries in the world routinely check flight manifests against that database: the United States, of course, the United Kingdom, and the the United Arab Emirates. So there is no question that more countries should follow our lead. Otherwise, international travelers, including Americans who travel internationally, are at risk. According to Interpol, in 2013, travelers boarded international flights more than 1 billion times without having their passport numbers checked against the database. Tools are in place to easily determine if a passport has been reported missing, and we should use every avenue at our disposal to encourage countries to do the right thing, including offering technical assistance where appropriate. In addition to not consistently checking the lost and stolen passport database, most countries are also not consistently sharing lost and stolen passport information with the Interpol database. The overwhelming majority of the 40 million records in the lost or stolen database comes from visa waiver program countries, in large part because it is conditioned for visa-free travel to the United States. However, those countries do not routinely check their flight manifests against the database, and as a result, I will be exploring introducing legislation and legislative solutions to encourage countries within the visa waiver program to do so. Because without timely reporting of lost and stolen travel documents, it becomes very difficult for CBP, through their advanced targeting system, to determine if someone is flying on a false document before they present themselves to a customs officer at an airport. If a terrorist is intent to hijack an airplane, it might be too late. And even though the United States has a robust screening and vetting process for travelers, it doesn't mean that our work in this area is done. I understand that CBP just recently began to check passengers on outbound flights against a lost and stolen database, and we certainly are interested from hearing from our witnesses today why that wasn't done before. Finally, I want to get an update on the work that Department of Homeland Security and CBP and the State Department and Interpol have done since 9/11 to prevent those with lost, stolen, and fraudulent passports from getting on a plane bound for the United States. And while Americans should be confident that DHS is doing good work vetting all of the appropriate databases, we can and should work with our international partners to strengthen aviation security for Americans who travel abroad. This subcommittee stands ready to assist in any way that we can. And the Chair would now recognize my ranking member on the subcommittee, the gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee, for her opening statement.